here I make Sarah's Amish lye soap. A lot of you have asked about this. This is a vintage old-fashioned soap saver. I have wanted one of these for about 10 years and I got it on eBay. But the soap inside it is what I use to wash my dishes. This is Sarah's Amish soap recipe. The recipe is old-fashioned lye soap. We're going to be working with old-fashioned lye and working with all kinds of soft fats. This is quite a large project, and I would not ever suggest you do this if you have children around, because you really need to give it your full attention. This is caustic soda, so this is something that you want to be very careful with. I don't wear gloves, which most people should wear gloves. I've been doing this for so many years that I really don't need to wear gloves. But I do have apple cider vinegar. So what apple cider vinegar does is if you would splash this lye on your skin and you put this on, it will stop the burn immediately. But one thing that I do always use, and that is the glasses. I will always use the glasses when I'm working with lye. I'm going to share with you step by step how to make this. This is something that maybe a lot of people wouldn't want to try, but I enjoy making this, and this is part of our heritage and part of our ancestry long ago. So I'm going to share with you the recipe, and then we're going to work on it step by step. This is the third video I have made on this recipe in the years. It calls for 3 cups of cold water, 17 ounces of lye, 2 pounds of coconut oil, 2 pounds of shortening, and 2 pounds of oil, 2 cups of lemon juice, and 3 tablespoons of powdered milk. So follow along with me as I make this, and I think you will be surprised in how it turns out. This is a recipe that is tried and true, and it always turns out perfect. The important part of being safe is when we add the lye to the water, it will become very hot, and it's very caustic. Once we start adding the soft soap to the lye water, it will start neutralizing it. So it's very important when we add the lye to the water that we take full focus on what we're doing. So get the glasses on. Safety always comes first. Now it's going to produce some fumes, not too many, but I usually do it outside, but every once in a while I will make my soap inside. And today it's snowing, so I can't really do it outside. Alright, we got our glasses on, let's get started. Everything ready? And this is our scale. So we have our scale calibrated. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to 17 ounces. When you're done using this, we throw this away, because whatever lye touches, you don't want to reuse it. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our lye into our water. It's going to get very, very hot. We want to use a wooden spoon that we don't use for anything else. We're going to slowly add the lye to the water. Be careful not to splash. Once the lye is dissolved into the water, it's going to get to about 200 degrees. This is the chemical process. You want to stand back a little bit because there's going to be some fumes. It's all dissolved now. We can start adding our fat. The first thing we're going to add is we're going to add our shortening. You want to be very careful when you do this that you don't splash. So we're just going to add little bits at a time. The shortening is what takes the longest to melt. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to melt the shortening. It will take a few minutes. As the shortening melts, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use our coconut oil. As you know, coconut oil gets melts really quickly. All of this will melt. This is such an easy recipe because you don't have to be cooking stuff over the stove. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to melt all of this up before we start adding our other oil. Now this can take anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. Alright, now all the ingredients that I am using are expired ingredients. So the shortening was expired, the coconut oil was expired, and the oil was expired. So we're using up really old ingredients, which is perfect for something like this. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our 2 pounds of oil, 32 ounces. Now some of the shortening hasn't quite melted yet, which is fine, it will melt. Now the lye and the fat are starting to neutralize. But still it's very caustic, you don't want to put your hands in it. It's hard to believe that soap is made from lye. No matter what kind of soap you have, most likely if it's a bar soap, it's made with lye. Alright. So now what we're going to do is we are going to add our 2 cups of lemon juice. Go ahead and add 3 tablespoons of powdered milk. Add 2 tablespoons of dried lemon peelings. This is something that I add. This is not part of the recipe. Now we're going to add essential oils, but not until it's really thick. Now comes the part where we have to take our stick blender and we're going to just keep mixing this until it gets the consistency of honey, which can take quite a while. Sometimes it goes pretty quickly and other times it can take a while. So I'm going to stick, we add our essential oil, which I always add lemon because this is what I use for my cleaning products. This soap you can use as bar soap, you can use this for any other soap, but I do use this for cleaning. And I use this for washing my dishes. I'm going to clean everything up, we're going to mix this until it gets the consistency of honey, then we're going to pour it into our molds. Some days they had to do this by hand and it would take a long time, but with the stick blender it can go pretty quick. So you know it's finished when you can go like this and you can draw on it. So you can make lines and you can make things like this. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to pour it into our molds. And there it's going to sit for about 48 hours. And then we take them out of the molds and it's going to take another 6 to 8 weeks before it's cured. Alright everybody, so here is the soap. Now we're going to let it sit for about 24 hours. Then we will take them out of their molds and let them dry. So I have bar soap, gingerbread men soap, all kinds of different soap molds. This makes a large batch of soap. Like I said, this will last me all year. Alright, it's been 24 hours and here's some of the soap I took out of the molds. Now as you can see, my soap is not perfection. I make my soap for me to have on the homestead. And so it's not perfect, and it's not something that you would buy in the store, but I really enjoy making them. Now, as you see, this soap is still very active. So we cannot use it for another 6 to 8 weeks. This is homemade lye soap. So you still don't want to use it until 6 to 8 weeks. And then I'll show you when it's time to use. It's very soft, so you have to be very careful. As you see, I'm not wearing gloves. I have very thick skin, and so this doesn't affect me. But for people who have very sensitive skin, I would recommend you wearing gloves. So it's still a little soft, so we can actually form it a little better as we work on it. Now, these molds are not made for soap, but I like to use them for soap. And as you see, there's some blemishes. And that's what it looks like. I make it once a year, and I don't really enjoy making soap. It's not one of my favorite hobbies like some people, but I make it because it's something that I really use, and I can make it so much cheaper than buying it. Now, I was given this 2 years ago for a Christmas gift, and these turn out really nice. So this is a soap mold here, and they turn out really nice compared to some of the others. So I'm just going to go around. Now I'm going to put these out in the out porch, out of the way, until they can cure. I usually let mine cure even longer. But this is a very mild soap when it's finished. I have a couple more gingerbread men, and then we can be finished. So these are the last 2 pieces, and this was what was left, and I used one of these, baking. I'll just throw this away when I'm done. Now these are just random pieces that I'm going to cut. And that is normally how I make my soap, is like this, but I decided to use some molds this time. And now you're going to recognize the little squares that I use for washing my dishes. So I probably won't have to use this till about 6 months. I still have enough for about 6 months of my cured soap from last year. Now I'm going to go ahead and make it into little blocks that I use for soap for washing dishes. A lot of people through the years have used this recipe, and everybody says it's such a winner for them because they can never go wrong. But this is lye soap, and this is something not everybody's going to want to try, and I totally understand that, because it is something that you really have to study on, and you really have to take good safety precautions for it. Life wasn't easy in Grandma's day. And we're starting to see that when we do all the projects that our grandmas had to do years ago. And that's why they did projects like this only about once or twice a year, because it was so much work.